So I've got a variety of different scraps on my table today. So welcome to Junk Journal July Embellishments Day 8. So I've got these scraps, these scraps, these scraps, a piece of scrapbook paper, and I've got 2 pieces of coffee dyed paper. So because this is double-sided, the scrapbook paper, I'm just going to leave that as it is. But these bits, they're just plain on the back, and I want to add some of the coffee dyed papers onto the back of them. So I'm going to go off and go and glue those to each other, and I'm going to trim off the excess white bits. So I shall be back very shortly. So I've cut all those pieces down. They're all backed with me coffee dyed paper, and I've cut them out on my paper trimmer just to make sure that they're all square. Now they're all varying widths and heights, so if I show you a close up, you can see, look, they're varying widths, they're varying heights, but so long as they're rectangular, it'll work. So I'm just going to chop off a small angle, and you can, you know, use a template. So I've got a plastic card upstairs with angles cut out, but I'm ending up with more down here than I've got in my craft room, so I'm just gonna guess. So I'm basically creating like a tag shape, really. So yeah, you'd be forgiven for thinking that I'm making tags, but I'm actually not. I want to do a big one that's longer. So alright, let's just do those for now. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to punch a hole in again, just like I'm making a tag. Punch holes in these two. So with this one, I've got these angles at the top, and it looks just like a tag. So what I'm going to do is fold it over, and I'm just going to fold up that bottom edge just a little bit, and then I'm going to fold the top edge of my tag up and over the top, almost to the bottom, but not quite. And then I'm going to ink up around all the edges. With the leftover coffee dyed papers that I used to back the insides of these, I'm going to use these as the pages. So if I just do a quick rough measurement, I want them to fit inside, so they need to be a little bit smaller. I'm just going to rip to there, move you out road. Now it doesn't have to be coffee dyed papers that are in here. Again, you could use up some of your scraps of your decorative papers that you've got. Right, so we're going to pop them in there. And then I want to make sure that they're sat down in that crease down there, and then I'm going to flip it over and get my stapler. And staple them from the back. So I've got the nice smooth part of the staple there on that side, and the rough part on this side. And I can even go over, this is just an example, but I could put a decorative piece of paper over the top of that to cover over the rough part of that staple there. And then again, I'm going to use my jute string. I'm just going to cut off a length for now. So I'm only folding over about 1/3 to 1/4 of the whole length of the string. And you can put your metal eyelets in here if you want. And then I'm going to pop the loop through the hole, and then pop all the loose ends through that loop. Right, then I want to separate them out so that I've got the short end will stay at the front and the long end will wrap around, and then I can tie them with a bow at the bottom. And it's just a slightly different way of doing a matchbook. Now, using it as a tag, I actually cut out a pre-printed tag and I did exactly the same thing. So if I undo this, as I say, it was just something a little bit different. So that lifts up, you can see the tag shape. There's some papers inside of there. Put a little decorative element on the front to cover over that staple, and on the back I added a little tiny pocket and just slotted some little pieces inside of it. But normally if you were making a matchbook, this bottom edge would slot inside of there. You can still do that, but I just liked to be a little bit different and had the tag bit on the top. So here's the really big piece of scrapbook paper. Nice big rectangle. I'm going to fold the bottom edge up. I'm going to do it that way. I'm going to fold that bottom edge up that way. And then fold this top edge down. Now I'm going to do this in the traditional style of just slotting it slightly underneath. And I've made a really big matchbook notebook, so that will just pop open by flicking your fingers on there, and then you can add all sorts of different papers inside of that. You could decorate up this little bar here, you could add images on the front here, you could add a nice big pocket on the back here. So there's all sorts that you could do. You could even add a pocket on the inside cover at the top up there as well. So I would also make, with my bigger scraps, some big scrappy notebooks, matchbooks as well. So here's what I ended up with. I've got 3 that are kind of ready and waiting to be finished off. So I can put those in my pile to finish off at a later date. I have got the one that you saw me demonstrating. I've not decorated it up in any way, shape or form yet. The one that I showed you that was a tag with a pocket on the back. But I made 2 that are like normal matchbooks. So one has got post-it notes, graph paper in. So that's that one. Again, needs a little bit of decorating. Got a pocket on the back. Another normal one, and this one's got a sample of all sorts of different bits of paper in it. Again, from my scraps bag. And this one was a square that I'd got of this beautiful embroidery, stump work embroidery, and I made that into a little matchbook, but a long one. So the square makes a long one, and again got different samples of scraps of paper in, more from my scrap bag. I've got this one which I made as the big version. Now I was going to originally use that paper on the outside, but I changed it to this sort of yellowy paper on the outside, and again it needs a little bit more decoration on it, but this will go lovely in my autumn journal. And again, it's got a selection of different papers in it, so it's almost like a little sample book really, but I can get some nice size pieces of paper in there. And then I've got this pocket on the back. So yeah, that's that one. And then this was another tag one that I started. So you can see the tag, it didn't print properly. My printer was running out of ink, so I thought rather than throw it away, make myself a little matchbook with it. So again, it's got the little post-it note scrap paper in there, but obviously that one needs finishing off as well, and that's what I ended up with. Okay, I hope you've drawn some inspiration from that, and hope it makes you go away and look at your scraps and think about creating some of your own. I'll see you all again tomorrow. Bye for now. Bye.